Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spread, supporting peer respect, education, and discourse. And we're an organization that are committed to those ideals. And we meet, generally, we try to meet once a month to give a presentation or come together as a community and be like, yo, did you know what's up with all this stuff? Here's some past presentations that have been given: personal finances, taxes, and we used to meet in person quite a bit, mixology, coding, and how to travel on a budget. Recently, as I'm sure you're all aware, we've been meeting mostly online via the Zoom. Thank you all for coming out. We hope you enjoy what we have put together for you today. It's a presentation by our very own Crystal Chen on nutrition. We do have some upcoming events. Obviously, today we're doing nutrition, and then next month there's income taxes by Anna, and then potentially the basics of getting a house, and then potentially a writing workshop that I will be hosting, hopefully in person, but we'll see where we're at come September. Also, we have a book club. Anxious People is the next book club selection. It was recommended by Jackie Tan. We're going to be discussing it on August 14th at 11 a.m. So you have plenty of time to pick up the book, check it out at the library, find an ebook, read it up, think about it, ruminate. And then this is Jackie Tan's explanation for why he chose the book, why he thinks it's a book that you should read. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then Crystal, you can take it away.
All right. So my name is Crystal Chen. You can find me on Spread SF on our Instagram, or you can email us at letsgetthispread@gmail.com. Just a disclaimer before I start this presentation, I am not a nutritionist. And I'm just sharing information that I've learned in school with you all. And I would also like to say that it is a safe environment, and I am not here to shame anyone into as to like what they eat and like how they eat, etc. Just a disclaimer. And I would also like to thank everyone for taking time out of their day and learning with us. Nutrition is just going to be the basics. I will not be doing a deep dive into like what vitamins or minerals that you need or anything specific. But if there is anything that specifically that you guys want to know more about or learn more about, I will be here after the presentation to answer some questions. But if there's enough interest, maybe we can do another presentation on specificity. First, we'll get into what is nutrition, why we eat what we eat. And then second, we'll get into macro and micros and what the 6 classes of nutrients are. And then we'll get into healthy choices. And I'm sure you've all heard that moderation is key. So we'll be talking about that a little more in depth later. Really, what is nutrition, right? Nutrition is a science that studies interactions that occur between living organisms and food. And so food provides us with nutrients and energy. Nutrients provide energy and structure to help us regulate bodily processes. So nutrition is fairly important, right? Because it's knowing and understanding what we put into our body and how it affects our body. And so your choice affects what kind of nutrients you really consume and what your body will use to maintain and function properly, right? Why do we eat what we eat? There are 4 categories of influences that really influence what we eat. The first one is availability, and then there's social and cultural considerations, psychological and emotional factors, and then also personal preference. Influences. First, we have availability. Your food environment is very important. It's where you grow up, where you go to school. The neighborhoods that you grow up in could have certain grocery stores that are right around the corner, or they could be grocery stores that are further down the block, but they can also be grocery stores that aren't your typical grocery stores like Safeway or Whole Foods or etc. It could be like Asian grocery stores or like certain ethnic grocery stores as well. And this also includes restaurants. Certain neighborhoods have certain restaurants that you go to, whether you're in Chinatown or like in North Beach, etc. Those neighborhoods influence what kinds of food is available. We also have pricing and advertising. For example, you're in not elementary school, middle school, you're in middle school or high school, right? You have a budget of like maybe an allowance of like $5-10 a week or $20 a week. You're going to purchase items that are on the cheaper side and something that that you can purchase maybe throughout the week, right? As a treat or like a snack for yourself. And so pricing is really important in terms of how it influences what we eat. More often than not, if you don't make enough money, then you're probably going to purchase items that are on the cheaper side. Same with advertising. Advertising plays a large role in what we choose to eat. And I know personally, specifically, growing up, there were a lot of advertisements on McDonald's. And so Happy Meals were something that was constantly on television, or it was like talked about a lot because you get a free toy with like a little meal, and it was so like adorable and like I wanted it. Growing up being around advertising like that has influenced me as an adult now. To this day, I still go to McDonald's, especially on road trips. And so I will like there isn't any other fast food restaurant that I would rather go to. Yes, I can say that with confidence. There isn't really any other fast food restaurant that I would rather go to than McDonald's, right? There's a lot of it, it's convenient, it's cheap, like, you know, it's just there for you. And so your economic status also influences what is available to you, right? Depending on your income bracket level, you could be purchasing food items that are on the cheaper side and that is accessible to you, right? You're going to get your bang for your buck. You're going to purchase food items that will last you a while for a cheaper price. And usually these are grocery stores that are like grocery outlet or like foods. And then you can purchase items that are real cheap, that are like potatoes and carrots and just the basics. But this also includes food items like snacks, right? Chips, cookies, candy, and soda. Those are also really cheap, and those are also really delicious or like really sweet and really yummy to eat during certain times, right? Your living conditions is also really important. This could really depend person to person. But if you don't have a car, right, you're not going to buy bags of groceries that you can't carry onto public transportation. You're only going to buy enough that you can carry, or you're going to buy items that aren't as heavy for you to carry. And this applies to a fridge and a stove as well. If you don't have a fridge, you're going to purchase items that you can eat on hand and that won't go bad. And these could be canned items or like prepackaged items that don't go bad at all. And if you don't have a stove, then you're limited to what you can prepare yourself. You'll be more inclined to purchase food items that are pre-made, prepackaged, or just going out to eat all the time. Being where we are now, especially in this pandemic, we're more inclined to like maybe order out food rather than to cook your own food, right? Because a lot of people don't really want to leave their houses during this time, but times are changing, so maybe it's different for all of us. Your health is also fairly influential as to what you can purchase and what you can eat. If you have a health condition, arthritis, etc., you can't carry heavy items, right? You can't carry cans, you can't carry like bags of potatoes, any heavy groceries in general. And so you're limited to purchasing small amounts of items that you can carry, or purchasing items that are light to carry for you. Likewise with allergies, people can be allergic to shellfish, nuts, seeds, but also citrus, etc. Right? And so those allergies will exclude certain food groups from your diet. This goes along with special diets and also GI issues. GI issues being gastrointestinal tract issues, or just digestive issues in general, right? For example, celiac disease, you can't eat gluten. And so certain food groups, not all the food groups within grains will be cut out, but maybe things that are available or easily accessible, like bread, will have to be cut out of your diet, right? For special diets, you could be a type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes. And so you have to limit certain foods that you eat and how much of it you eat. So these are large influences that we have in our lives. But we also have social and cultural influences, preference and habits, which is really our family, our culture, our nationality, and our social background, right? So growing up, your family is probably your largest influence on the foods that you're exposed to and the foods that you learn to like or learn to dislike, right? And so for me personally, I'm Chinese, and so my family, in my family, rice is a staple. There's no argument there. But for different cultures, they could have different staples, right? Say you're Italian or in Italy, their staples probably pasta, any shape or form of pasta. India, you have curries, like a variety of curries that could be a staple for them, right? You would also have religious and cultural traditions. And so if you are religious, say you're Jewish or Muslim, then you have excluded pork from your diet, and which is completely normal. Or if you're a Buddhist, you could be vegetarian and exclude like certain food groups from diet, right? Like meat and maybe sometimes dairy, depending. And then for cultural traditions, we have Thanksgiving, right? Which, as we all know, like a table spread of turkey and like cranberry sauce and like mashed potatoes or like pecan pie, etc. Right? Those are probably something that you'll see at a Thanksgiving spread more often than not. But personally, growing up, I wasn't exposed to Thanksgiving a lot, and so that is something that I just wasn't exposed to growing up. And so it was really fun or learning about Thanksgiving, especially through advertisements, but also going to friends and families' houses to eat really for Thanksgiving. And then we have social interactions, which is our friends, dinner table, peer pressure, etc. And so with like when you meet up with your friends, right? More often than not, you're probably going to go grab brunch, lunch, dinner, maybe a cup of coffee or like tea, or like grab a snack somewhere. So our friend groups really influence what we eat and where we eat. And at a dinner table, whether you're with your family or with your friend's family or with your friends in general, right? For dinner parties, you'll probably there'll probably be food that is put out that you may or may not want to eat or do not know about. And so these are it's a place where people come together and experience different foods, but also you may be put in a position where you have to eat certain foods or like a little bit of something, even if you may not like it, right? Out of respect. And so this can also lead into peer pressure where you're in a group setting and you're trying to decide where to eat, what to eat, and it's hard with multiple people. And so a decision will eventually have to be made. And sometimes you can maybe put in a situation where you don't really want to eat the food at a restaurant that was chosen, or you're just indifferent about it in general, right? And so these interactions influence what we eat individually. Then next we have psychological and emotional. Most of us will probably can make an association with food and comfort. So personally, right, when I'm sick, there is a certain food that I will usually gravitate towards, and that is jok. It's just this rice porridge that is hearty, and growing up, that's something that I have eaten whenever I'm sick, right? And so I've made that association of jok and well-being, recovery, getting better in general. And so that in itself is comfort food for me. And so we all have a variety of foods that will provide us with comfort and like makes us feel like a sense of love and security. Food can also be a reward. When you're doing well in school, like you get A's, or if you win a spelling bee contest or an athletic competition, you want to go out and celebrate. You can probably go out and maybe get ice cream, or you can go out for like a really nice meal, etc. Those are influences as to what we put into our body as well, right? Food can also be a form of punishment. You probably heard of parents withholding certain foods from their children, whether it's like dinner or like snacks or desserts, etc. Even as an adult, some people subconsciously punish themselves by withholding certain foods from their diets or from themselves just because they're not doing well in certain parts of their life, right? And so these are things that you've probably learned growing up and may not necessarily be the healthiest way, or may not be the healthiest way, right, to live. That's a different subject. We also have milestones, which could be like birthdays or anniversaries. And for these celebrations, more often than not, you'll probably have like a cake or like a dessert or like something that's really yummy to celebrate these milestones. And so you'll probably go out for like a nice dinner or just really treat yourself, right, for these milestones in life. But food can also be a mood indicator where, depending on your mood, you'll eat certain things, specifically when you're stressed or when you're sad, maybe even when you're angry, especially when you're happy, you'll eat, right? I think we know what stress eating is and what bored eating is and what like anxious eating is, right? And so food plays a large role into what we eat, but vice versa. Mood also plays a large role into what we eat and put into our bodies. There's also personal preference. This being taste, smell, appearance, and texture. We all have our personal preferences and we all have specific things that we either really like or really dislike. Personally, for me, there are certain textures that I really enjoy, like slimy foods, whether it be okra or mountain yam or natto. Like those slimy textures I just really enjoy, and I'm not quite sure why. Probably because I was exposed to it at a young age. But I know people really dislike certain textures like that, like slimy and like certain tastes, like bitter taste. But again, it's personal preference, right? We also have our favorite foods, which we'll gravitate to as maybe as a reward, right? And so depending on the person, favorite foods vary, right? For me, I really love instant noodles, like with a passion. If I could eat it every day, I absolutely would, but I probably shouldn't, so I won't. And so, yeah, so there's certain foods that we just really love and will eat by default or like want to eat. Personally, your lifestyle is also a large influence on what you eat, right? If you're a vegetarian or you're vegan, there are certain food groups that you're excluding from your diet and you're personally choosing not to eat them because of your lifestyle. And you also have your perceptions, which influence what you eat a lot, right? If you believe and think that low carb is healthier, or low carb will help you lose weight faster, or maybe you just don't want to eat low carbs for whatever reason, right? Then those are your perceptions, and that will influence what you eat as a whole, right? You're probably going to exclude certain carbs like rice or bread. Perceptions could also be towards an environmental impact side, right? If you feel or believe that plastic is really polluting the environment, right? You're going to lean towards food items that aren't packaged as heavily as other items. And maybe you'll even go to farmer's market and purchase groceries that aren't in plastic in general, right? And so these are your perceptions that will also influence what you eat as a whole. Perceptions aren't wrong and they're not incorrect, right? They're your own personal preferences and they're your own personal beliefs, right? They're your choice, really. And so with that said, based off of what we've learned so far, I do want to ask you guys, like, what do you eat? Why do you eat what you eat? At this point in the presentation, we're probably going to break you guys out into breakout rooms, or we'll just have a discussion in general as to what your comfort food is and why is it your comfort food. William.
What kind of food do people enjoy? Either comfort food or stuff like that, and why? Or like, why do you feel like you enjoy that food? Like, I've never had okra before. I don't know if I would enjoy that kind of slimy type of food.
Yeah, okra's only all right. It's not like something I would eat when I'm stress eating. But chocolate, I just have that like laying around at home, and like during Chinese New Year or other like really social events where relatives come over, what they bring is always chocolate, and then it's either we eat them or we re-gift them.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's just when it's laying there and it's out in the open. It's my time to shine.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah, my comfort food is fried chicken. It's really unhealthy how much I enjoy it. I don't really have a reason because I don't know what's there not to like about fried chicken.
True. I think another comfort food that I can probably think of for me personally is like Vietnamese noodle soup. It's very specific, but like pho, I feel is something that is really comforting. And it's just something that I can eat all the time. Don't know why though. Yeah.
I believe Jackie was saying that candy/junk food is something that he likes to buy because when I'm sad, I want to spend little money but buy lots of things. So I think that's part of it. It's like you want to get the most bang for your buck when it comes to your dollar going to what you want to buy and what you want to eat and what comforts you. Yeah.
Do you guys have any healthy comfort foods? I guess would it be a comfort food if it's healthy though?
It could be.
It could be both. I like eating strawberries that are like fresh. That's like relatively healthy, right?
Yeah. Or like watermelon.
Yeah.
But-
Sugar snap peas. Those are delicious. Those are a little too good. Yeah, I think also texture is a big thing. If it's something like popcorn has that nice sort of crunch, but it's not too aggressive or whatever, that's nice to snack on. Grapes, bread, bakery bread too. Kiwis. Amy said kiwis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kiwis are hard to like, you have to like peel them and everything though.
No, I think you can cut them in half and then use a spoon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
Does anybody else get that thing where you're eating pineapples and it like starts to burn your mouth? Is that a thing that's pretty common
you
with
have to,
people?
like, soak it in salt first before you eat it raw.
What, pineapple?
Pineapples, they're acidic, so they're kind of roll in your mouth as you eat them.
Yeah.
And the salt helps?
Yep.
I don't know about that.
What?
Oh, maybe you can. I don't know. That's a thing that my family does.
And it works.
Right? Yeah.
What?
But I get that with kiwi though, sometimes.
Never had that.
My mouth gets scratchy after eating kiwi for a bit.
Maybe you're just allergic, Crystal. You're having an allergic reaction.
I could be, yeah. But my throat isn't.
But the pain hurts so good, so what can you do?
Exactly, but I'm not dying, so.
Oh, question. Is PB&J healthy? Answer, Crystal. Is PB&J healthy?
Well, it really depends on the sugar content of the jelly one, but also the sodium and sugar content in the peanut butter.
That's true. I think like natural organic peanut butter versus like Skippy peanut butter, it's like two totally different worlds in my experience. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Taste wise, yeah. But again, some people may not be able to afford, organic, whole,
fancy organic.
Yeah, but I mean, also we grow up eating Jiffy. Whether it's like the smooth one or the crunchy one. I prefer the crunchy one, honestly. But yeah, Jiffy is just something that I don't know. We grow up with. What other brand is there?
Nat says, I've realized I'm really not a snacker.
Oh, well, that's
Lucky
good.
you.
Right.
Everyone's like talking about their snacks. I'm like, I don't really do any of that.
So then do you mostly eat your 3-course meals?
Yeah, I mainly eat like three meals a day. Every time I get snacks, like I'm at Target, like, oh, this looks good, and I'll open it and I'll eat like a third of the bag and forget about it.
Right. I mean, a snack could also be boba, right? Like drinks too.
Oh, true.
Yeah, those are also, I would consider snacks. Yeah. That was very interesting, hearing about what everyone's comfort foods are. Next, we'll probably get into the nitty-gritty parts of it, which is your macros and your micros. I'm sure we've all heard of macros and micros. Within this category, there are 6 classes of nutrients, right? You have your carbohydrates, your lipids, your proteins. You also have water, vitamins, and minerals. And so your 6 classes of nutrients are important in terms of regulating your bodily processes, whether it's to maintain life, regulating your body temperature, your blood pressure, your blood sugar levels, etc., right? And so within those 6 classes of nutrients, they're broken down into 2 categories, whether they're energy yielding or non-energy yielding, essentially. And so energy yielding means that your body needs it to basically, they're metabolized to provide energy for your body, right? With that said, alcohol is also considered energy yielding. You do get like 7 calories per gram of alcohol that you consume, but it is not considered a macronutrient because it is not essential for you to maintain life, really. On the other hand, water doesn't really provide any energy at all, but is necessary for us to maintain life, right? And so energy yielding also means that large amounts are required for our bodies to really function properly, right? And so this leads us to macronutrients. Technically, a nutrient, it is by definition a nutrient needed by the body in large amounts. And so starting off, we have carbs, which provides us with 4 kcals per gram. I'll get a little bit more into kilocalories per gram after we get through these macronutrients. But yes, they provide us with 4 kilocalories per gram. Carbs are also readily available. They're the first source of energy that our body will tap into. And essentially carbs are sugar, right? And then sugars are in its simplest form and they're easily available for our bodies. And so under this category, we have vegetables, fruits, legumes, and grains. And so I will say fiber from like vegetables, fruits, legumes, and grains, it's not something that our body necessarily needs because we don't have the enzymes to break down fiber, but it does promote positive GI health, right? It will help your body move foods along easier. And so especially for your large intestines, right? Fiber will help us in many ways, shape, or form. There are certain microbes in our large intestines that will feed off of fiber or will use it to, I don't know, help us digest other nutrients, right? And so I will say if you are consuming a high fiber diet, you also need to consume more water. Otherwise, that fiber is going to move slowly through your digestive tract and you will have a harder time passing it at the later end. And so next we have lipids. Lipids provide us with 9 kcals per gram. And lipids are basically fats and oils, right? They're in a concentrated form. And so they're not easily as accessible as carbs are or sugars are. But nonetheless, your body will tap into those resources, that storage if needed, right? And so lipids are made of triglycerides, which are abundant and they're fatty acids. And so if you were to, like any fat that you have on your body, those are triglycerides, right? That's fat, right? And so your body will use that as a form of energy if it needs to. And so within triglycerides, they're broken up into 2, either they're saturated fats or they're unsaturated fats. And so from our diet, right, saturated fats are essentially fats that solidify at room temperature, and unsaturated fats do not solidify at room temperature. Saturated fats being the bacon grease after you cook bacon, and unsaturated fats are like cooking oils, right? Like avocado oil, vegetable oil, etc. And so, yes, we also have cholesterol, which is a lipid. We've probably heard a lot about cholesterol, whether it's like good cholesterol or bad cholesterol. But I will say cholesterol plays an important role in our hormonal regulation and processes. It dictates which hormones need to be released or produced, etc., especially when it comes to our reproductive hormones, being estrogen, testosterone, and like progesterone, right? We also have protein, which provides us with 4 kcals per gram. Protein is essential for our growth and maintenance. And these include meat, fish, poultry, eggs, milk, grains, vegetables, and also legumes as well. And so proteins are basically, when broken down, they're chains of amino acids, right? They're amino acids that are linked together, and it could be a variety of different combinations, really. And so these amino acids can either be made in-house, like our body can make certain amino acids, or we will have to get them from our diets. And there are amino acids that we cannot make at all, but we do need for our bodies to function. We can get into that a little bit later or afterwards, but amino acids are either we make them or we eat them. Another macronutrient would probably be water. It doesn't necessarily provide us with energy, like I said, but it does make up 60% of our weight, right? And so water doesn't store well in our bodies, as you know, because we do use the bathroom, we do pee, right? And so water is used as a form of lubricant, really, to lubricate our joints, also to transport things throughout our body, like nutrients, vitamins, and it's also used to regulate our body temperatures, right? But water is also used to flush out certain toxins from our body as well, right, in large amounts. And so with that being said, like Pikachu, we have in our little GIF, why don't we all take a sip of water, seeing as how it is very important. I am hoping you guys all drink enough water throughout your day. So I'm just gonna take a pause here, and I myself will also take a sip of water. All right. I hope you guys took a sip of water, or like a sip of anything, really. Moving on. Just briefly, I just want to get into calories and what it is. So calories is basically a unit used to measure the energy producing value of food, right? And technically, right, is an amount of heat necessary to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water degree centigrade. And so kilocalories is a measurement used to express energy provided by foods. And so kilocalories is essentially calories in terms of food. And so carbs provide us with 4 calories per gram. Protein provides us with 4 calories per gram as well. Fat provides us with 9 calories per gram. And alcohol provides us with 7 calories per gram. And so really, essentially, like all carbs and like protein, fat, and alcohol in its simplest form, whether it's sugar, amino acids, lipids, triglycerides, when they're burned, they will each produce, like carbs will produce 4 calories, and protein will produce 4 calories, as well as fat with 9, alcohol with 7. This is like on average across the board. And so when we ask ourselves how many calories do we need to consume on a day-to-day basis, this really depends on your basal metabolic rate, right? Like how much energy is your body burning at regularly in its like while you're sitting, right? That's basically at a resting rate. How much energy is your body burning? It also depends on your level of physical activity. So really, if you're exercising all the time or like at least an hour a day, you will probably need more calories than the average person that maybe does not work out as much, right? But these can all be calculated online as well if needed. And I can go more into that later if it's interesting. And so I just want to quickly get into nutrition facts and reading a label, really. So looking at the nutrition facts, right? Based off of what we know, fat burning 9 grams, 9 calories per gram, carbs burning 4 calories per gram, and then protein also burning 4 calories per gram. We could calculate the calories on this 1 serving size of Maruchan instant lunch soup, right? So the equation is 12 grams of fat, which is on here, right? 12 grams of fat, and you multiply that with 9 kcals per gram, as well as 39 grams of carbs. You multiply that with 4 kcals per gram, and then you will multiply 7 grams of protein with 4 kcals per gram. And so there's the equation that's used to calculate the calories for the instant noodle, right? And at the end of it, so if you were to do this calculation, you will probably get not 290, it is 292. That would be the calories. That would be the amount that you would get from this equation. And so if you look on the nutrition fact label, it says 290. And so the FDA allows companies to round up or round down. The FDA allows companies to round down or round up. So if you get 292, they'll round it down to 290. If you get 293, they'll probably round it up to like 295. It really depends on the food that you're eating. And so I think this is pretty fascinating and maybe important information that you could use in the future if you do want to calculate your own calories and the content of the food that you're eating, really. And so micronutrients, they are a nutrient needed by the body in small amounts, really. And so first we have vitamins, which are organic. They're non-energy yielding, and they are also necessary for our bodies to really maintain and function properly. And when I say it's organic, it just means that there is a carbon-hydrogen bond between, there's a CH bond for the atoms, really. And so vitamins are broken into 2 categories. First one being water soluble, and these vitamins include vitamin B and C. But within vitamin B, there is a variety of vitamins in general, right? There's thiamine, which is B1, riboflavin, B2, niacin, B3, and then there's biotin, pantothenic acid, and B6. There's folate and B12. And so each of these vitamins are essential and necessary for us to really be healthy and function properly. Especially, well, I say this now, but folate especially is really important for women, especially during our reproductive stages, and especially prior to having a child, right? But also when you're having a child, folate is important for the growth and development of your fetus, really. But these vitamins we can get into at a different time. They're all very interesting and they're all very necessary and important to our day-to-day life. Next, we have fat-soluble vitamins, which means that they dissolve in fat. So this is vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. And so vitamins are a little fickle, right? They can be lost during cooking, during like certain cooking stages or during storage, but also through processing. And so depending on how you cook things and how you store it, and like where it's processed, how it's processed, a lot of vitamins can be lost. But nowadays, companies fortify their foods, which means that they add the vitamins back in. So that has contributed a lot to a decrease in certain diseases that stem from vitamin deficiency, right? And then next we have minerals. They're inorganic, meaning they don't have a CH bond. They're not energy yielding, but they are necessary for our regulatory processes. And minerals, unlike vitamins, they're harder to, they can't be destroyed, really, right? If you're like through the cooking process, packaging process, etc., minerals are harder to destroy than vitamins, and more often than not, they'll stay in place, really. And so minerals are also broken into two categories, whether they're major minerals, meaning that you need more than 100 milligram per day, or they're trace minerals, meaning you need less than 100 milligram per day. And so major minerals include sodium, chloride, and potassium. And so these three are also known as electrolytes. So these are the three minerals that will replenish your body after like a long marathon, etc., right? Major minerals also include calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, and sulfur. And within trace minerals, we have iron, copper, zinc, selenium, iodine, and etc. Minerals are also very interesting, and electrolytes specifically. Fascinating stuff. We can do a deep dive at a later time. And so with that said, healthy choices are also really important for us, right? Broccoli, delicious. And just briefly, before we get into choices, I wanted to discuss what food groups are. And so we have our 6 food or 5 food groups here, and these are based off of government recommendations, USDA recommendations. But first we have grains, which is you either have whole grains or refined grains, whole grains being whole wheat, quinoa, oatmeal, and refined grains being English muffins or just like regular processed or like enriched pasta, really. And then we have vegetables, which can be broken down into separate categories. Dark greens, which is kale, your spinach, your collard greens, and your broccoli. And then we have red and orange vegetables, which is tomatoes, carrots, bell peppers. And we also have beans and peas. Those are considered vegetables. Being kidney beans, black beans, chickpeas, peas, and lentils. And then you have your other vegetables, which don't quite fall into those categories, which is mushrooms and squash, lettuce, avocado. And then you have your starchy vegetables, which is like potatoes and corn, right? And then you have fruits, which we all know, apple, banana, watermelon, papaya, or you can also have 100% fruit juice. Just make sure it's not from a concentrate or it's not a cocktail, really. And so you want to look at the ingredient label and make sure it says 100% fruit juice. Yeah, if you look at certain cocktails or like cocktail drinks that they sell at grocery stores, it will more often not contain fruit juice that is like maybe like in the lower range, like 5 to 10% or like 5 to 20% fruit juice, and the rest of it like being water or like from concentrate, etc. And so you just want to double check before you consume fruit juice, really. And then next we have protein, which is your salmon, your tuna, your trout, catfish, chicken, beef, pork, eggs. Protein also includes nuts, seeds, and soy, right? And then we have dairy, which is milk, yogurt, kefir, soy milk. I don't know if dairy is necessarily something that we still drink on a day-to-day basis. I don't really know anyone that drinks like a tall glass of milk with their food anymore, but you guys may. But yeah, so these are the 5 food groups. And then, so the government recommendations for consumption and the amount of each food groups varies, really. On the left, you see a food pyramid, which is, I'm assuming, something that we've seen growing up a lot and something that we're probably used to. But within like the last maybe 10 years, it's been upgraded to what you see on the right, which is a plate and portions of fruit, grains, vegetables, protein, and dairy. And so with fruit, women are recommended to consume 1.5 to 2 cups of fruit per day, males 2 to 2.5 cups. Vegetables, women are 2.5 to 3 cups, and then male consuming 3 to 4 cups of vegetables per day. And then grains, you have 6 to 8 ounces for women, men 8 to 10 ounces, and then protein, we have 5 to 6.5 ounces for women, and then 6.5 really to 7 ounces for men. Alongside the government recommendations, what is recommended by the USDA, we also have what is recommended by Harvard. And so they have a different healthy eating plan. And the difference being there's no dairy here. Water is being, water, tea, or coffee with low sugar is recommended with your meals rather than dairy. And then they also recommend eating healthy oils, such as like olive or canola oil for cooking. And then on salad, maybe also like an olive oil or something, and to avoid butter and like trans fat in general. But if you look on the plate, the proportions are also different than what you have on the government recommendations, right? Majority of what is on your plate here is vegetables. And then you have even amounts of whole grains and healthy protein. And then you have fruits, which is like a smaller amount, right? Compared to what is on the other slide. And so they really recommend eating lean and healthy proteins. Yeah, so like fish, poultry, beans, and nuts, and to really limit red meat and cheese, also to avoid certain proteins like bacon, which have a really high fat, trans fat, saturated fat content, cold cuts, and really other processed meats like Spam. But yeah, and so they're really pushing for us to eat more vegetables, really. And so I just want to get into nutrient density. So nutrient density is a measure of nutrients a food provides compared to its energy content. And so foods will provide you with energy regardless of what it is, right? It's just a matter of whether or not that food is also nutrient dense, whether or not it will provide you with vitamins and minerals. You can have something on the left here, which is like a really colorful bento box, right, of rice and protein and vegetables, compared to what you have on the right, which is essentially French fries and soda and like ketchup, right? And so based off of these 2 GIFs, you can see that the one on the left is clearly more nutrient dense because there are vitamins and minerals, more vitamins and minerals than its energy content, whereas on the right, there is more energy provided and less nutrient provided from the French fries, really. And then we have variety, which is also really important in terms of what we consume. And so I would really recommend like eat the color of the rainbow, really. And so I would say we should be eating at least 3 food groups in our meals per meal, really. And so food groups being like grains, vegetables, fruit, protein, etc., right? We should have at least 3, and it would be even more beneficial if they were like colorful, you know, like having 3 different colors in your meal, like maybe red for pasta sauce, or like purple being eggplant, and then you have like your carb, which is like maybe a whole grain pasta. And so, you know, having 3 colors or like 3 food groups in your meal will it'll benefit us a lot, but it's also something that is easier for us to do rather than eating all 5 food groups at once per meal, really. So I think if we're eating at least 3 food groups, 3 colors in our meals, I think we're doing okay, really. And so it's important to eat a variety of foods and to really not eat the same things all the time or like every day, because foods have different interactions with each other, especially when it comes down to proteins, your amino acids, but also your carbs and your vitamins, your minerals. And so the different food groups and variety of food that you eat, they all influence your body, either in a positive way or maybe not as in a less healthy way. But variety means different interactions, and you want your body to function at its best or function properly. And so it's important to really eat a variety of foods. Balance is also really important. And I will say there isn't a good food and a bad food, right? It's either, I would say that it's healthy or unhealthy, or you could say is it nutritious or less nutritious, right? Yeah. And so you could say, I mean, if you wanted to eat a bag of chips, right? You wouldn't say that it's bad, right? You would just say that it's not as nutrient dense. It's just less healthy than maybe an alternative of like kale chips that could be a little bit more nutrient dense and a little bit healthier than potato chips, right? And so balance is key, and also how we view food is important. I think I wouldn't say, I think it's unfair to categorize food as either good or bad, because all foods are essentially good. It's just, they just vary in nutrient density, in my opinion. And also moderation is key. Even if you're eating foods that aren't as nutrient dense, it's important to control how much of it you eat. This being portion size, right? I know it's easy to just consume a bag of chips, really, as you're watching TV or doing something else, really. But it's important to be aware of what you're eating and how much of it that you're eating. And so, it's okay to eat unhealthy or like eat foods that are like sugary or like salty, like here and there. It's just being aware and knowing how much of it that you're eating and portioning out how much you should be eating, right? So back to potato chips. If you love potato chips and you want to snack on it, instead of maybe bringing the whole bag with you to the couch or your chair or to your bed, you can portion it out and put it into a bowl or like a paper bowl or a tissue, and just bring that with you and eating out of there instead of bringing the whole bag, because more often than not, if you bring the whole bag, you're going to eat more than you want or you're even aware of, really. And so we're coming to the end of our presentation, and so some takeaways. Why we eat what we eat. And so you eat the way you do because of your upbringing and your environment, and really your family and your friends and the neighborhood that you grew up in. Those are large influences on foods that we're exposed to and foods that we learn to love or learn to dislike, especially at a young age, right? And so this changes as we get older, like our taste buds, like it'll change as we get older. And so it's nice to learn and know and be aware of and really think about why we eat what we eat, right? And so, and I hope like you guys will probably maybe think about the foods that you eat and like why you eat certain foods that you eat. And it could be simply because it tastes good, right? Or it could have like a deeper meaning to it. It's like, why are you snacking now, even though you're not hungry, right? Just thoughts like that. And then with M&Ms, which is your macros and micros, I think it's nice. It's just like learning what your macros are and what categories fall under macros, and also how much each macro burns, like how much calories it provides for each of them. I think that was really interesting when I first learned about macros and micros. Yeah, especially with vitamins and minerals. Those are fascinating subjects, and our body does a really good job of absorbing nutrients and vitamins. And so I will say we will absorb 40 to 90% of the vitamins and nutrients that we ingest. And so our body will do what it can and do its best to really maintain life, right? Our body does not want to die. And so it will do its best to extract as much nutrients, vitamins, minerals, etc., from the foods that you eat as possible. That being said, it is also important to provide your body with the proper nutrients for it to really function and maintain itself, and really for us to feel better about ourselves as well. Micros, they're small quantities, which being vitamins, minerals, very important stuff. And I hope you guys learned a good amount of that, whether it's water-soluble vitamins, fat-soluble vitamins, trace minerals, major minerals. Those are really important. We can talk more about that later, maybe. And then we also have your health and learning and knowing about moderation and variety and your food groups, and really just doing our really best to consume at least 3 food groups per meal, right? Whether it's grains, vegetables, fruit, protein. Yeah. So I hope you guys learned a lot from this presentation, and I will take questions if there are any questions. Yes.
Question right here. Okay, so my question is, what's the deal with like snacking versus eating big meals? Because I remember hearing about like some people are like, oh, eating 3 square meals a day is healthier for whatever reason. Or the counterpoint I heard from other people was like, oh no, you want to snack throughout the day because that keeps your metabolism like moving. Like which way do you lean on that issue? Do you think it's one or the other, or is it all right or all wrong?
I think it's no, I think it varies from person to person, right? And honestly, I'm not quite sure which one is healthier or which one is better for you, but I really do think it depends on the person, like whether or not you have time to eat like a full meal, or whether or not you have to snack throughout the day, depending on like your working situation or like your school situation, etc. Right? I personally, I don't snack as much throughout the day. I really prefer meals, but I do snack regardless. But I do think it's important to really have at least 1 or 2 meals a day, in my opinion. And I also think it's important to let your body finish digesting the food that you eat from your meals or like your snacks, and to really let your body rest and like kind of catch up and prepare for the next meal, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, I think having your body constantly work and just be constantly processing food, I personally feel it's a little hard for my body. And so I eat meals. And I don't know if that answers your question, but I really just want to say that it varies from person to person, and it really depends on their lifestyle and how busy they are. And yeah.
Right. Anybody else have any questions?
This is kind of a tangent, but have you heard of intuitive eating?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just figured like maybe a presentation about, because it kind of goes hand in hand with nutrition, because some people have difficult relationships with food, and like how just to like eat intuitively too.
Yes. I agree. Intuitive eating is interesting because it's really based off of really what your body wants to eat and when you're hungry, right? And so it can be hard for people that, like you said, with a complicated relationship with food, right? Because if you're used to a certain lifestyle of consuming high fats and high sugar, right, then if you're there's a possibility that if you're leaning towards like intuitive eating, that you could intuitively or like want to eat those types of food more often than not, right? And so it can be hard, but I think, yeah, I think intuitive eating is interesting because it doesn't, I don't know if it necessarily, if everyone can do it, but I think it takes time to really become more in tune with your body and knowing and learning what your body needs.
Going in the opposite direction of intuitive eating, what's your opinion on intermittent fasting? Is that a thing?
Yes, that is indeed a thing. Intermittent fasting is essentially
Intermittent fasting, I think, from what I've heard of what intermittent fasting is, it's like you only eat during like what, like an 8-hour period every day. It's
yeah,
basically you skip breakfast and you don't eat anything after dinner, is what I've heard. Right? Is that correct?
yeah, you basically have a certain hour or time frame of when you eat, whether it's 6 hours, 8 hours, or 10 hours, right? And but you're still supposed to consume the same amount of calories that you usually would, just within that small time frame, so that your body will have time to process and burn off those calories after your time frame of eating. But intermittent fasting is basically you're starving your body for an extended amount of time, and then you're consuming food in a short amount of time.
So do you think that's like unhealthy, or is it just for different strategies for different body types, or do you think it's like something you would not recommend?
I think it's different for different body types, right? And it also depends on your schedule too. Some
That's
people
true.
can, some people can't do it. And so, yeah, it really depends. It works for some people and it may or may not work for other people. It really depends on what your goal is. I know people use it to lose weight, burn fat, because right? Like I said, essentially you're starving your body, right? And so your body is going to tap into resources or like energy fuels to burn, really. That's the idea of it. Yeah.
Cool. On a similar note, what's your thought about OMAD, 1 meal a day diet? Single meal.
Interesting. I don't really know much about single meal diets. Yeah, I just know that people eat one large meal that's like calorie and nutrient dense, and then they're good for the rest of the day, really. And again, it works for some people, may not work for other people. But I don't really have enough information to answer your question as to what it is, really, because I don't really.
Sounds like extreme intermittent fasting. Amy, do you know more about 1 meal a day diet specifically? Because Amy brought it up. I don't know if you can see the chat. Okay, yeah, Amy was just looking for more information. I guess we could all sort of follow up on our own. My next question is, what's up with vitamin gummies? Are they a good alternative to eating healthy? Or not alternative, but are they a good, or are they a scam? Do you just like, pee all the vitamins out? Like, is that a good way to get what you need?
Interesting. Vitamin gummies are essentially supplements. And I will disclaimer, supplements are not regulated by the FDA. There are no rules. Like the rules are made up, or like, yeah, labels and rules are made up by the supplement industry, really. And so I would say gummies provide vitamins that you need. If you can't afford to get them from Whole Foods, right? Or like foods that you consume in your diet. And so I think they're okay. It's just they can have large quantities of vitamins in them. And so your body will only process the amounts of vitamins and nutrients that it needs. And the rest of it will get flushed out, whether it's through your urine or through your bowels. So yeah. I would also like double check on the sugar content of them as well, just to make sure they're not high in sugar.
That's true. Yeah, I remember when I was a little kid, we'd eat like these Flintstones little chewable things. They weren't gummies. This was like pre-gummies, and they always tasted like candy. And I was like, man, this is good for me. Suspicious. Anyways, yeah, sorry, what?
These, right? They were like chewy, but like powdery.
Yeah, they were like Smarties, but like even bigger. And so they were like there was like more to chew.
Yeah.
And I really like them, but I could tell like they're super sugary. Anyways, or maybe probably artificial sugar of some type. Stephen is asking, what's more important, exercise or diet?
I would say your diet is probably more important than exercise. If you have a somewhat healthy or like a normal diet, a healthier diet, right, then you're essentially changing your metabolism and the way your body processes and burns calories and food, really, and energy. And then I think exercise is almost hand in hand, but I would say it comes after your diet. Because with exercise, you are burning energy, but you're also building muscle mass, which helps you burn more energy, right? But in order to really have a sustainable energy source, you need to work on your diet first. And yeah, so I'll say diet.
So the diet's more fundamental, but exercise is still important.
Mm-hmm. Because so diet is something that you eat every day, right? Your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and your snacks is something that you consistently do every day, whereas exercise may not be something that you do every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Stephen also asks, what's your take on probiotics and other things for gut microbiome? Oh,
Um,
Carmen is asking that. Sorry. And I'm not sure how to pronounce the second word, but probiotics and your gut microbiome in general.
yeah. I would personally say that your gut microbiome is very important in terms of your health, really, and your maintenance of your body functions. Because your microbiota, they will compete with organisms or bacteria that are infectious, right? Your microbiota will do a good job of producing enzymes or certain chemicals that prevent pathogens from attaching to your large intestine, or it'll outcompete with pathogens in terms of collecting nutrients and energy source from within your bowels, right? And so probiotics, they are also not regulated by the FDA. And so it really depends on your personal preference and your personal belief, whether or not they make a difference. I know some people are really gung-ho about probiotics, and they take at least 1 or 2 of those probiotic pills per day, and they can attest that it has prevented them from really getting sick in a really long time, right? And then there are also people that are skeptical about probiotics, and they're just unknown, like you don't really know if they're going to work, if it's hearsay. I personally really enjoy taking probiotics, and I do think they make a difference in terms of your gut health. Yeah, so I mean, it really depends on your personal belief and preference, right?
Wait, so you take like, is there like a pill or is it like
So yeah, so you can take a pill, right? They sell those at supermarkets, grocery stores, but you can also consume probiotics through your diet, really. And I'm sure you've heard of like sauerkraut and like kimchi, and just like fermented foods hold a lot of probiotics. Yakult.
oh
So
yeah, that was the
yeah,
one I was gonna list. I love that shit. It's really good.
yeah, those also have probiotics in them. They are a little bit high in sugar, but I mean, they do contain probiotics, and so I would drink those if I could personally.
Andy says that he would not recommend prebiotics, which I was curious about, if you have any kind of gut health issues due to bacteria, because prebiotics will also feed the bad bacteria. My question would be like, what's the difference between probiotics and prebiotics? Because I've never heard of prebiotics.
So prebiotics are the nutrients or vitamins, minerals, etc., that is used to feed bacteria. And probiotics are the bacteria, I would say. And so that's a great point. Prebiotics, they feed good bacteria, but they also feed bad bacteria at the same time, right? And so you want to make sure that, I don't even know if it's possible to make sure, but you want to be aware of well, prebiotics can also come from foods too, and so it's hard to limit the foods that you're eating, because prebiotics come from also like fiber and like vegetables and fruits, etc., and stuff like that, right? But if you're specifically talking about like prebiotic like pill, which I have not seen before, but maybe it exists out there, then I would be maybe a little bit more aware of that. But if you have a good microbiome and like a healthy gut bacteria situation, then I think prebiotics aren't bad, right? And also, the good bacteria in your gut will essentially outcompete with the bad bacteria in your gut, and so those bad bacteria usually feed off of like high fat and like high sugar content stuff. And so if you're eating a whole foods diet, which consists of mainly really whole foods and like vegetables, fruits, etc., stuff like that, I think that will do a good job in assisting the good bacteria in your gut with outperforming and outcompeting the bad bacteria in your gut.
Yeah, Andy brings up a metaphor for how to distinguish between probiotic and prebiotic.
Mhm.
Probiotic is the seed of a field, while planted in a field, while prebiotic is the water and the nutrients that feed the field. So there you go.
That is true.
Another question that I had personally was like, what's up with the, sort of not necessarily meal replacement things, but
Mhm.
what's your opinion on like Soylent or Huel or there are plenty of other ones, but what are your opinions on those sort of powdered meal in a bottle things?
I think those are, I mean, they're made because there's a market for it, right? And people don't have time to cook meals for themselves or like to go out and buy meals, and like they're working all the time. And so they need like a quick meal that they can just consume. They don't have time to chew their food, I guess. I think it's better than not eating or like not consuming food or like minerals and vitamins, etc. Right? But I would recommend actually eating a meal.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
mean, like,
better than nothing,
yes, I would say better than nothing.
but you're decidedly pro real food and not necessarily if you
Yes,
have the option of eating like a real something or other, you would rather go with that rather than like a powdered food in
absolutely.
general.
Yes. I mean, and also with drinks like that, it's hard to limit yourself really, or like it can be hard to um stop drinking, I guess, because it's just an easy way, an easy form of consuming calories. And so it can be hard or like difficult to like stop after like one bottle, right?
They don't taste good.
Yeah. And
I
like
think that's the main thing stopping you from overeating is that they taste kind of like cardboard, right?
Sorry, I cut out for a second there. I missed all that.
they taste like
uh,
carbs. That's what Will said.
yeah, I said like the thing that prevents you from eating too much, like Soylent, for example, is that it doesn't necessarily taste like junk food in that it's not trying to taste good per se. It's just trying to taste good enough. I think
Yeah.
that's the main thing that they use to prevent it.
Yeah. I've honestly never had a full bottle of Soylent before. I've only seen it. But I think
I tried like a couple sips. It's not very tasty.
They have all these weird new flavors now. But yeah, I've tried Soylent. I've tried both the powder and the pre-mixed stuff that you can get at even like gas stations and whatnot.
they have powders. I didn't know that.
Yeah, the original is like the powder, and that is for the real diehards. You have to mix it up yourself and everything.
Oh, I didn't
That
know.
tastes really bad. Well, not bad, but like that's definitely a harder thing to swallow.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I,
and there are all these alternatives.
yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of like protein shakes, but not
Yeah.
just protein. They're like an everything shake.
Yeah.
Andy says it's kind of like crab meat versus imitation crab meat. They both kind of taste the same, but arguably it's always better to go with the original.
I will. I was just talking to Anna about this the other day. I really dislike imitation crab meat, like with a strong
What?
passion. Like I would prefer not to eat it.
You don't like
Um,
California rolls at all?
no,
What?
I mean, okay, no,
Those are
like
the best.
okay, I like them,
Best
but
roll.
they're not my first choice, right? I'd rather eat like a simple avocado roll over a California roll. Like I would rather eat like just like a small
Just
roll.
avocado and rice.
Yes, and
No crab.
or like with cucumber inside. It's like a cucumber roll over like a California roll.
Whoa.
Yeah. Imitation crab is just not it. I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me. But like Andy said, yeah, it's like a form of crab. It's like an imitation of real food, really, and it provides you with like the basic nutrients and vitamins and minerals that you probably need to get you through until your next meal. But yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? Anybody? General nutrition questions?